News analysis, commentary, and debate. It is the Wells Report. Today is the second day of August, year of our Lord, 2023. Thanks very much for joining us today. Let's get to the news. This is the Wells Report front page, a digest of news that happened after the show yesterday and while we were asleep. Former President Donald Trump has been indicted again. This from USA Today. A federal grand jury indicted former President Donald Trump yesterday for conspiring to steal the 2020 election from President Joe Biden, including the insurrection of January 6, 2021, that a prosecutor described as an unprecedented assault on democracy. Quote, it was fueled by lies by the defendant, said special counsel Jack Smith as the indictment was unsealed. Trump is now facing his third criminal case. He denied wrongdoing, denounced the indictment as an attempt to derail his 2024 presidential candidacy. The indictment details multiple strategies Trump and allies employed in an attempt to overturn his election loss. One of the methods that Trump used in a bid to steal the election, according to the indictment, involved a fake elector scheme to overturn President Joe Biden's victories in key battleground states. Trump also deliberately deceived his supporters and directed them to march to the Capitol in an effort to pressure former Vice President Mike Pence and lawmakers to reject the certification of electors, according to the indictment. 6 co-conspirators are referenced in the indictment but are unnamed. We have those names. We'll be playing that for you when we detail this story in just a few minutes. Among those co-conspirators is Jeffrey Clark, a high-ranking Justice Department official in the Trump administration. Republicans are decrying the abuse of power. This from Fox News. House Republican Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik of New York told Fox News Digital special counsel Jack Smith's indictment against Trump marks, quote, yet another dark day in America as Joe Biden continues to weaponize his corrupt Department of Justice against his leading political opponents, Donald J. Trump. Representative Austin Scott from Georgia, he's a Republican who sits on the House Intelligence Committee, told Fox News Digital the double standard is baffling. How can the justice system recommend a plea deal for Hunter Biden but continue to pursue President Trump this way, said Scott. It's like we're in an authoritarian state. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee told Fox News, the news of another indictment against President Trump is no shock ahead of 2024. The left knows they can't beat Trump amid Biden failures, so they're trying to take him out with criminal charges. Biden is abusing two tiers of justice to target his greatest political opponent. House lawmakers who served on the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol celebrated for the third time this grand jury indictment of former President Donald Trump announced yesterday. If their applause on yesterday brings a feeling of deja vu, there's a good reason. USA Today reports many of the details in the indictment are familiar. They were unearthed by the special congressional committee that investigated the insurrection of January 6th. The federal grand jury accused Trump of organizing a conspiracy to steal the 2020 election from President Joe Biden, including the insurrection that a prosecutor described as an unprecedented assault on democracy. Mississippi Representative Benny Thompson, the January 6th committee chair, wrote on X, today's charges are consistent with those special select committee referrals to the special counsel last year. Successful prosecutions will not only bring accountability, but will also help prevent something like January 6th from ever happening again. For his part, reported by Fox News, former Vice President Mike Pence did not parse words when reacting to former President Trump's indictment by special counsel Jack Smith yesterday. In a statement released before the indictment came out, Pence accused Trump of putting himself over the Constitution and said a Trump candidacy would serve as a distraction from President Biden's disastrous record. Quote, the former president is entitled to the presumption of innocence, but with this indictment, his candidacy means more talk about January 6th and more distractions. As Americans, his candidacy means less attention paid to Joe Biden's disastrous economic policies afflicting millions across the United States and to the pattern of corruption with his son Hunter. Quote, today's indictment serves as an important reminder. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. I will have more to say about the government's case after reviewing the indictment. The Hunter Biden scandal leads up to the president, says Newsmax. Former senior advisor for former President Donald Trump, Jason Miller, told Newsmax yesterday the ongoing scandals of Hunter Biden are leading up to his father, President Joe Biden. Quote, we have testimony now that Joe Biden joined over 20 phone calls of Hunter and his shady business foreign dealings. He was on the John Bachman Now podcast. This whole thing stinks. I think it leads all the way up to Joe Biden. According to Miller, Monday's testimony by Hunter Biden, according to Miller, Monday's testimony by Hunter Biden's business advocate or associate, Devin Archer, in which he said that Joe Biden spoke with his son's foreign associates more than 20 times on the phone and made personal appearances at several meetings with those people, shows the president lied in 2019 when he said he never discussed his son's business dealings or had any knowledge of what he was doing with foreign entities. By the way, there is an op-ed piece out by Liz Peek regarding the impeachment strategy. Republicans need to roll forward with impeaching Joe Biden, says Liz Peek, but caution is essential because in order to convince the American public that Joe Biden is guilty of corruption, the GOP needs to produce indisputable evidence. Right now, Kevin McCarthy's party is unusually polling ahead of Democrats on the generic ballot, a solid indicator of electoral success. Let's keep it that way, says Liz Peek. She's, by the way, a Fox News contributor and a columnist for The Hill. An impeachment proceeding could divide Republicans. That will not help win the 2024 election. If the GOP convinces the public that Joe Biden took bribes and sold out his country, he will have to exit the 2024 race. The longer the investigation into his alleged corruption goes on, the less time Democrats will have to promote an alternative candidate. In that scenario, Kamala Harris steps in, says Ms. Peek, and she calls that a win for the GOP. Out of social media news, this also from Fox News, White House officials pressed Facebook for special access to tools to target vaccine-hesitant users and berated Facebook employees for not sharing enough data. This contradicts White House claims at the time. According to internal company communications viewed by Fox Business, the White House asked Facebook if they could provide government agencies with special access to target users. Quote, since it's a global pandemic, we give agencies access to targeting parameters that they normally are not available to them, said Biden's digital director, Rob Flaherty. The idea came up in a conversation on how to convince people worried about the side effects around the COVID-19 vaccine to take it. Quote, if someone in rural Arkansas sees something on Facebook, it's the truth. What we need is help pushing back on the myths. The idea that Big Brother was snooping on people's Facebook conversations is something the White House brushed off at the time when Fox News' Peter Doocy asked about it in July of 2021. Doocy asked then White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki at the time if the government was spying on people's profiles looking for vaccine misinformation. Psaki claimed at the time, this is publicly open information, people sharing information online, just as you are all reporting information on your news stations. Doocy followed up. The big concern, though, I think, for a lot of people on Facebook is that now Big Brother is watching you. To that end, Jim Jordan of Ohio shared what he called smoking gun documents proving that Facebook censored Americans on behalf of the Biden administration in a lengthy social media thread last month. Jordan wrote an all-caps message. The Facebook Files, Part 1, Smoking Gun Docs provide Facebook or prove that Facebook censored Americans because of Biden White House pressure, before diving into the lengthy thread reminiscent of the so-called Twitter files disclosed earlier this year. Never before released internal documents subpoenaed by the Judiciary Committee prove that Facebook and Instagram censored posts and changed their content moderation policies because of unconstitutional pressure put on them from the Biden White House. This according to Representative Jim Jordan. The FBI decided they would investigate a spying tool, and then they found out that they themselves were using it. This from National Pulse. An inquiry by the Federal Bureau of Investigation into a government contractor using Israeli spy software to monitor U.S. citizens discovered it was doing so on behalf of the FBI. Reporters discovered that landmark spy software developed by Israel's NSO group, blacklisted by the Joe Biden government as a national security threat in 2021, had been purchased and deployed by government contractor Riva Networks later that same year. It's now known that one of Riva Networks' clients was the FBI. Like the White House, the FBI claims it had no clue the contractor was using Landmark to geolocate U.S. citizens in Mexico without their consent. And Director Christopher Wray canceled the contract. Yet reporters seeking more information about the secretive nature of the Bureau's dealings with Riva Networks are now being stonewalled. Out of finance, the U.S. has taken a hit to its credit rating. Fitch Ratings downgraded the U.S. debt rating yesterday from the highest AAA rating to AA+, citing a steady deterioration in the standards of governance. The downgrade comes after lawmakers negotiated up until the last minute on debt ceiling deals last year, risking the nation's first default. In a meeting with Biden administration officials, representative from Fitch Ratings also highlighted the January 6th insurrection as a significant concern as it relates to U.S. governance, according to a person familiar with the story, but the credit agency did not mention the insurrection in their full final report on the downgrade. Explaining its rationale, Fitch pointed to the expected fiscal deterioration over the next 3 years, a high and growing general government debt burden, and the erosion of government governance over the last 2 decades that is manifested in repeat debt limit standoffs and last-minute resolutions. The downgrade has potential reverberations on everything from the mortgage rates Americans pay on their homes to contracts carried out all across the world. The move could cause investors to sell U.S. Treasuries, leading to a spike in yields that serve as a reference for interest rates on a variety of loans, mortgages, credit cards, etc.